Welcome back to Joe Stunner Boxing. We have a big domestic heavyweight fight between two very big men. FRAZER CLARKE challenges FABIO WARDLEY for the British and Commonwealth heavyweight titles. And this, I think, is on Sunday. This coming Sunday, not Saturday. It's at the O2 in Greenwich. It's promoted by Boxer and it's on Sky Telly. Great matchup. This originally, as you may remember, was supposed to be. Originally went to purse bids, and Clark was pulled out because Ben Shalom felt Clark needed a bit more experience, a few more rounds under the belt, which is not a bad shout. He eventually got 10 rounds against Marius Vac, or the very sturdy but hardly an ambitious version of Marius Vac, but nevertheless, he got a bit more experience, pro experience under his belt. But FABIO WARDLEY, this is a very different proposition to Marius Vac or even Dave Allen, who was actually was FRAZER CLARKE's last opponent. Now, WARDLEY is currently 17 wins with 16 KOs, no draws and no defeats. And he was last seen. Was it October last year? I think it was back end of October. Yeah, it wasn't the December one. It was the October one. He knocked out the previously unbeaten David Adelaide in 7 rounds. Adelaide was 12-0 at the time, and that was for the British Commonwealth. And I think there was a WBO European thing on the line, which is not really the European title. The real European title is the EBU title. So that was a really good win for WARDLEY. And I think it was his best performance, actually, against a guy who there'd been a lot of beef between them. And I think one of Adelaide's crew had smacked or maybe even floored FABIO WARDLEY during a press conference or post-press conference. He's also beaten Nathan Gorman in 3 rounds. And, he's looked all right. I mean, he's got some real spite about him. I mean, he did nick Webbing around. Now, let's play devil's advocate here, because the flip side is that there have been little occasions, very, very slight little snippets, where WARDLEY has looked vulnerable. In fact, he did look a bit vulnerable against Nathan Gorman, who in the 3rd round was actually getting the better of WARDLEY. He shook him, rattled him. There was a bit of, shake, rattle and roll going on. And WARDLEY, it's almost like a switch was flicked. Like I say, he's got some real spite in him. He tore after Nathan Gorman, got him onto the ropes and battered him. And Gorman was just about overwhelmed. I mean, he was actually down. I think I might have been in the 2nd round. Was he floored twice in the 2nd round and then in the 3rd? But anyway, the main point is that like I say, it was like a switch had been flicked or a button had been pressed, and suddenly WARDLEY, because he just got Gorman out of there. By the 3rd round, it was all over, and Gorman was looking pretty good. He was boxing quite well. There was also a little, I can't remember, maybe the 3rd round when he fought Eric Molina, where Molina tagged him and WARDLEY kind of shook a bit, and it was a good punch, but Molina, by this point, was just picking up paychecks and ended up basically rolling over in the 5th round once. But again, WARDLEY kind of snapped into life, I suppose, because he was kind of going through the motions, and then suddenly he looks like the type of guy who's got to get rattled before he can really wake up and start fighting with some real nastiness. But he does have that nasty streak to him. He's 29 years old. He's 6'5". He's a big but not gigantic heavyweight. And I think is he still managed by Dillian White? I know he's been part of White's crew and has done a lot of sparring and so on. And White doesn't tolerate people who haven't got nastiness in them. His spars are tough. I'm sure Dillian White has taken years off his own career, and in fact has diminished his punch resistance by having so many really nasty gym wars. Well, WARDLEY needs to be careful of that. But WARDLEY didn't have an amateur career, but that shows a little bit in his technique. I think he's coming in leaps and bounds, though. Certainly, like I say, the previous fight, the one with David Adelaide, I was really impressed. I was more impressed than I expected to be, put it that way. And WARDLEY, I think, he could definitely hit, obviously, 16 KOs in 17 wins. So the man's a threat. But there is A slight question, a very slight question mark over the punch resistance, I suppose. But I love that because that makes him more exciting to me. The fact that he might get tagged and floored himself. I don't think has he ever been on the floor in his career, professional career? I don't think he has. Anyway, let's talk about Frazer Clarke, because Frazer Clarke is, well, you probably know, he's an Olympic bronze medalist, turned pro with boxer. He's only had 8 fights, 6 KOs, and the opposition has been very, very weak. He did Bogdan Dinu in 2 rounds. I think Dinu retired after 2 rounds. Like I said, his last fight was against Dave Allen. That was last September, where Allen retired after 6 rounds. There was 10 rounds against Mariusz Wach. He had a 6-round points win over Kamil Sokolowski. I mean, this is weak. This is low-level stuff. And it doesn't prepare you for someone like Wardley. Now, having said that, you have to consider that Frazer Clarke does have a lot of amateur experience. So he's used to the big stage for the Olympics. Psychologically, mentally, emotionally, he could probably step into that ring and be, he can hold himself together. He can hold the event together. He can hold the pressure. He can take it on his shoulders and carry it. He is, again, he's a very big guy. He's bigger than Wardley, 6'6". These are both orthodox fighters, by the way. Clarke probably weighs, I don't know, I think he's hit 19 stone or near as, damn it. Probably 18. He's an 18 stone guy, maybe. Bigger than Wardley. He's got good skills, good basic skills. I think Wardley has come on in leaps and bounds technically, although there are still a few defensive lapses that I see, which might be why he can be tagged. Who do I think is going to win? It's a very difficult fight to predict. I do feel that I haven't really seen any evidence that Clarke has got a bad chin, although he was beaten up in the amateurs a few times, and he's untested in the pros. If Wardley can land on Clarke and Clarke can absorb the punches, even if he gets floored and he gets up, and Wardley suddenly discovers, well, actually, I can't just bomb this guy out, even though my switch has been flicked. This guy's still there. I think the early rounds, first 3 or 4 rounds, are going to be very dangerous for Wardley. I think Clarke will probably be the one looking to box more. Wardley is going to try and put pressure on, try and control the range, getting with his feet, use his footwork, but be very proactive, coming forward. I think Clarke will probably might be behind after 4 rounds. In the second third of the fight, so rounds 5 to 8, I think it might be give and take. It might develop into a bit of a punch up and less of a boxing match. And I think in the last third of the fight, so we're talking rounds 9, 10, 11, and 12, I think Clarke, with his amateur pedigree, his amateur experience, if he's still there, will put it on Wardley and cause some damage. I can actually see this fight. This is so difficult to predict. On one hand, I can see it going the distance and, a wafer-thin decision. It could go either way. On the other hand, there are 2 factors. Wardley, I'd like to see Wardley hit cleanly by Clarke to see how he reacts. And I'd like to see Wardley go 12 tough rounds. So perhaps if Clarke can drag him into those deep waters, he can, especially as he's a much bigger man. I mean, Wardley's big, but Clarke is naturally a very, very big man. If he can muscle him, maybe even make the fight a little bit dirty towards the end, drain his energy, I think that would be an interesting question. I can honestly make a case for either man. This is so difficult to predict. But in all honesty, who am I going to go for? I've got to go for someone. I'm doing the bloody video, aren't I? I'm going to go for Wardley. I think Wardley has a certain fighter's mentality, and I think he might have to come off the floor to do it, even, or he might have to go through some very rough patches. But I think he can. I'm going to go for FABIO Wardley to grind down Frazer Clarke in about 9 or 10 rounds. That's the one scenario. You know, I can see about half a dozen different scenarios. That's the one that seems to have muscled its way into the foreground of my mind. I just think Wardley will answer the question marks over his head. And I think Clarke will fight very gamely, very tough. I think don't be surprised if you see Wardley go to the body as well, because Clarke's body is a very big target. And I would advise both men to go to the body early, but that's true of any fight with any fighter. You know, the way body work is neglected in this day and age is, I think, it's a shame. Mike McCallum and people like that used to be fantastic body punchers, but yeah, I'm going to go for Wardley. I think Wardley pulls it out in about 9 rounds, stops Clarke. Clarke might even retire on his stool. That wouldn't surprise me. But it's going to be a good one. Like I say, British and Commonwealth heavyweight title. I don't make that prediction with any kind of confidence, but leave your predictions below. Who do you think's got this? Are you looking forward to the fight? Maybe you think it'll be a boring fight. I don't, but I could be wrong. You might think, this is going to be a bit of it'll develop into a bit of a maul. You could be right, but I think it will be good. I'm gonna stick my neck out. So I think it'll be a pretty good heavyweight bout, worthy of the British title, worthy of the Commonwealth title. But who do you think is going to win? Comments below. Do you agree with me? I'll say a 9th round stoppage for Wardley, or do you think Frazer's got it? Or do you think Fabio wins on points or Frazer wins on points? Whatever you think, leave your comments below. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Please hit the subscribe button. I'd really appreciate that. And also hit the like button as well. That'd be fantastic. And spread the word to all your mates about Joe's Ton of Boxing. Appreciate your time. I'll catch you later. Bye for now.